What's the most fucked up thing someone has told you after barely getting to know them? Not safe for work. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. An older woman walked up to me at a bar, first time ever seeing her in my life, and said, "I'll come real hard if you put your cigarette out on my clit." And then she staggered away and I never saw her again. Should have put a ring on it. I had just met my new manager, and a few hours in, he tells me about how his wife got into a car crash and died while she was on the phone with him. It kinda came out of nowhere, and the rest of the car ride was silent. I work with this girl in an IT company, very professional setting. Didn't really know her that well, same project, different team, knew her name and that was about it. Once per week, the entire project would have breakfast together. This one time, I ended up on a table with just her and me. Her: "So, do you live alone?" Me: "Yeah, I have an apartment at," redacted, to myself. Her: "I bet you masturbate all the time." Me: "WTF?" She wasn't even hitting on me, she was just weird as fuck. In my first year in field service, my 4th deployment was to Malaysia, scheduled for 3 months. Stayed there for 9 in the end. After a few weeks there, our electrical engineer had to leave and they flew in another guy. An old dude, who has been doing this job for almost 40 years all around the world. We shared our rental car from that point on. Like a week or 2 in, he started complaining how we are settled in a shitty area. I asked him why he would think that. We all got huge apartments in a high-rise building that was just finished a year earlier, and we're in a rich neighborhood in a suburb of Kuala Lumpur, with good restaurants around and even a mall just in walking distance from our place. And then he said that it's a shitty area, as it is a strict Muslim area, and all the prostitutes he requested refused to go there for the same reason. It's a strict Muslim area. He was furious and was complaining the whole 20-minute drive from our workplace back to the apartment that no prostitute would come to visit him, and he had to get a taxi and go into the city to have some fun. That guy was married with grown-up kids. I met a girl on a bus, and within 5 minutes, she was telling me how her old boyfriend used to beat her and was sent to jail for sticking their toddler's feet in boiling water because he woke him up. An hour later, she wanted to know if I wanted to go into the bathroom on the bus with her to have sex. Well, I worked a warehouse job as a forklift operator. The guy that trained me told me that when his grandmother passed away, that no one in his family wanted to take care of her cats. So, he and his brother put them in a garbage bag and tied it to the exhaust of their car. I've been working there for just over a week. I left early that day and cried in my car since I've had 2 cats pass away and currently own 2. He said it so cold-heartedly and with a smile. I quit that job the next day, since his 2 other brothers also worked there. I just don't see how someone could do that. I have congestive heart failure, and a person told me, well, at least you know how you're going to die. That was 6 years ago, and I'm still here. I work in hospice care for many years. When you start washing someone's feet, they tell you everything they've been holding back their whole lives. I've been told about murders, backstreet illegal medical procedures, rapes, incest, abuse, even a bank robbery, all of which I now carry because I would never betray the trust of a person with clean feet. I met my stepsister's stepkids for the first time last week. They said their biological mom went to the psych ward for trying to kill the younger child when they had just been born. The kids were 7 and 9. Not stuff kids should know, in my opinion. I used to commute to work on the bus, and one of the lines had a bench. For 2 random weeks, a late teens, early 20s woman started sitting next to me every day. She seemed to have some kind of intellectual disability, and in a period of a few days, somehow we went from casual small talk to her telling me about her daddy raping her getting pregnant, and the state taking her babies because she couldn't care for them, a process that apparently happened multiple times. Never learned her name before she stopped taking that line. Oddly, at that same bench, I had an old woman, looked around 70, tell me all about the man she was meeting and how good their sex life was, but at least that was a wholesome story. Worked landscaping with this guy. He was kind of a hippie, no dummy, and not scary at all until he volunteered in the truck as we left the job site for the day that he would really like to have the experience of killing someone. It didn't feel like a threat at all, but it definitely colored my perception of him. Homeless guy used to always hit me up for change, as smoke, etc. on my commute. He was well dressed and had a Bluetooth always there. Saw him at 9 p.m., saw him at 3 p.m. One day, He decides to tell me he used to be a day trader. He started doing coke, said everyone there was doing it, demanded that I look at him now and tell him what he is supposed to do to fix this. I didn't say anything because I didn't know what to say. Still don't. We'll never forget him. I asked a gentleman Gulf War veteran for any stories as I worked on him. I'm a tattoo artist, and it is sometimes a very intimate and personal line of work. People have crazy stories. It gets to be a lot to handle when you're constantly participating in memorization, enshrining of memories, recording milestones, dealing with trauma, etc. He told me about being part of a military caravan headed to some place. They arrived at a bridge where the locals had taken their children and laid them down end to end in front of the vehicles in an attempt to get them to stop. He didn't say how many people or children were involved, but it was a lot. Of course, those convoys can't stop for any reason. Their convoy did not stop. He said he didn't actually see what was happening, but everyone involved could feel it driving across. The soldier driving the point vehicle took his own life, and it was all pretty much for nothing. An intern once told me they were a convicted child molester. Of course, they claimed to have been falsely accused, but he had to tell me for legal reasons. We were getting ready to work as PAs on a children's TV show, and he was asked to work the event with us as an intern. I was very uncomfortable, to say the least. When I was a kid, I played Minecraft with this chick, and after a couple weeks of playing regularly and Skyping now and again, she revealed to me her stepfather was sexually abusing her. Pretty yikes. She told me I'm the only person who knows, and she doesn't know what to do. Obviously, I told her to go to the police, and not long after, we kinda lost touch. Hope she's alright now. This was like 11 to 12 years ago. My fiancé and I were with some friends at a bar right before the pandemic, and a stranger overheard us speaking about Lake Lanier in Georgia. After literally 3 seconds of knowing this girl, she told us about how she was on the lake that day and saw a dead body in the water. She promptly pulled out a photo of the floating body on her phone. Some friends and I hit it off with some guy in a club in Miami who tried to recruit us to run cocaine from Miami to Orlando. We were already don't recognize yourself in the bathroom mirror drunk when one of us tripped and fell into him. After some laughs and apologies, he invited us to the VIP area and bought bottle service. We were all young interns, so we were in awe of him at first. Then out of nowhere, he suddenly said, "Do you guys want to make some money?" It was a wild conversation. Talked about it all like it was a full-time job with benefits and shit. No idea if he was full of crap or not, but he later also cried and said he hadn't seen his family in years because of his choice to live that lifestyle. He was probably 25. It was one of the most surreal, flirtatious moments of my life. I was back in my old college town visiting friends. I'd moved out of the Midwest and was living in Los Angeles. In real life, I was a lowly PA working on a reality show casting, but at this Midwest house party, I was practically a famous movie producer, LOL. I had been eating right at a P90X every day, and I don't know, I was never much of a ladies' man, but something in the air that night, and I was in the crosshairs of a beautiful woman. We were flirting and joking effortlessly, and it was so cool. And then I asked her who her favorite serial killer was. I went home alone that night. Met this guy one night out that told me he used to be a drug dealer. Some people kidnapped him, soaked him in gasoline, and threatened to light him on fire because he owed them money. He prayed to God right there that he would quit and become a Christian if he lived. He managed to escape, went home, and flushed his stash down the toilet and changed his life around for the better. Back in the early 2000s, a colleague who, after a few drinks, admitted that he couldn't go back to Serbia as he was wanted for war crimes. Dragan had done some things with some people. Nice bloke, but got a bit maudlin after a few too many beers. This question suddenly reminded me of the night I was stuck waiting at a bus stop downtown in Midwestern US city with a random dude telling me about being abducted by aliens. They made him steer the ship by stamping his feet rapidly around, which he demonstrated for me. I laughed politely, and that made him angry. "Why are you laughing? I'm serious." He went on and on and on, but I couldn't understand what he mumbled and yelled about. So, my responses always upset him. "You'd think I'd want to take us out to the edge of the galaxy, right?" "Sure, I guess so." "No, and don't guess." "Okay, I got this. Second year in college, and a friend of mine had her friend over who was in the community college. While I was there, she started having a panic attack that she was pregnant. It comes out that she gave her boyfriend a BJ and swallowed, and her period was late. So my friend had me, since I was a biologist, explain how that all worked. Met a friendly man at a Montreal hostel. My friend and I had planned to move on to Quebec City the next day. He told us to stay in Montreal for our trip because the girls there were forward, and then talked a while about how successful he was. Yes, he was a go-getter, but then it emerged he was battling with a porn habit, then a gambling habit, then a cocaine habit. This onion had many layers. We did stay in Montreal though. I went on a date with this chick. It went pretty well. On the drive back from a venue, she randomly tells me how her boss raped her while she was passing out drunk with a bunch of people cheering it on. She ended the story with, "He apologized a couple of days later, so we're cool." I had no idea what to say or do. Awkward, to say the least. Used to bartend back in 2017, and a super drunk guy that my coworker was serving all night approaches me and told me to be careful. When I asked why, he said with a smirk, "Because I'm gonna rape you." I froze for a good 5 seconds processing what had just been said to me, while this guy just turned back to his friend group and joined in on the regular laughter and discussion. I went to the bathroom and cried. Had a friend come and get me shortly after. I got set up on a blind date with a girl. I ended up never talking to the girl or the person who set me up again. We met at a bar, and when I first set eyes on her, the very first thing I noticed were the hundreds of self-mutilation scars all over her body from cutting. She wore shorts and a spaghetti-strap top, and the scars were just everywhere. Arms, legs, shoulders, necks, hands. Some of them were pretty large also. I decided to have one drink and then leave. She told me within 15 minutes that she had been a baker, acted a bunch, and DCF took her toddler son, and she was living with her parents and all this horrible stuff, and she was just a mess. She begged me to stay for another drink and listen to her sing karaoke, and I felt bad enough for her to oblige. She sang Genie in a Bottle and dedicated it to me. One very drunk person in the crowd said that she had a lovely voice and I was lucky she was my girlfriend. I very quickly corrected him, thanked her for a nice time when she got off stage, and said that I didn't think we were right for each other, and left. Brand new coworker at my job. I walked into the room and said hi. Instead of saying hi back, she pulls out her phone and says, "What do you think of this?" and plays me a voicemail of a middle-aged woman calling her every horrible name you can imagine. Apparently, the woman on the voicemail was her ex-boyfriend's mom, and she wasn't happy with how they ended things. Okay, but that's not how you greet a coworker on your first day. I had a sales rep I supported who I barely knew told me about how her family thought her brother was killed by his wife. She went into details and explained that she took the job to raise enough money to hire an investigator to prove he was murdered. This was the first non-work related conversation we had, and it was in a cab on our way to a customer appointment. A sub I work with occasionally, and honestly can't stand because she is an awful teacher, got in trouble for yelling at me for following the school rules when she tried to force me to break them. Long story. Anyway, she was forced to apologize. Then she decided that the best course of action would be that we have to be best friends from now on, and proceeded to talk incessantly to me. I don't talk much, and get nervous around weird people. So every break we had, we were co-coaches that day for PE, so I was stuck with her all day. She proceeded to tell me all the men she was currently sleeping with, including her married neighbor, who apparently literally crawled through her window on multiple nights so his wife wouldn't catch him. It was so weird. She was sleeping with 5 different guys, and she was butt ugly inside and out. I now avoid her like the plague.